It's December 16th, 2013. And I just described some of the things that were happening at George and Janet Bechtold's house. And this is, to give you a background idea of what things were happening to me as a kid repeatedly at their house prior to their son raping me later, decades later, using some of the same techniques and tactics that they had used on me when I was a kid. And which I think goes to show that this was a government scheme and not just some kind of a random thing that happened. And I'm not lying or making this up or misunderstanding anything. So, another thing that happened at their house when I was older. So they practiced all these things against me. And they practiced like a huge, a lot of sex abuse and torture against me. And I had a lot of overnighters at the Bechtold's house. I don't really remember, trying to think, do I remember anything else that went along with that, such as like hypnosis or anything? And I don't really remember hypnosis. I do remember George Bechtold repeatedly saying some of the same things over and over again, like kind of like brainwashing. And he did brainwashing and then trying to program me to respond and be forced to accept, some of their triggers and codes that they would use. But they didn't, I don't really specifically remember hypnosis, although I think they actually did have a friend that came over and even did that one time when I was in a chair, like tied up. So, when I was older, no longer, 4-year-old girl, no longer, 6 to 8-year-old little girl. When I was older, like more like 10 or so, 9 or 10, they started getting paranoid because I don't think I was turning out the way that they wanted me to turn out, because or something had changed, and they started getting nervous, and they began threatening me more, using more threats against me, and bringing over cops to threaten me as well. And I actually think I almost got killed at their house, because we went to their house, my parents, me, and then they were already there, and had all my, and also when I was in the room being sexually assaulted, they had the Rasmussens, and they had these different other kids come over. They had some older kids that were around Nathan's age as well. They had some of Nathan's friends who were older boys that were like teenagers. They were coming over to sexually assault me too. And then the only time that I actually kind of resisted a little bit more, because I was so shocked, was when Nathan tried to use the same triggers and pull the same thing to get a sexual favor out of me. And I was, for some reason, I kind of snapped out of it, because I was so shocked. And so, but they had him trying, and then he got nervous. He got really nervous. And then, because he was so nervous, I felt I was more in control of the situation. And told him to get lost. I dared to tell him that, despite the fact that I was getting tortured, if I even tried to resist anything from anyone who wanted what, they were coming after. But, so I was older, and my whole family went over there, and the Bechtolds were kind of arguing with my parents about something. And I tried to make a run for it. I thought they were going to. I started remembering what they had done to me. And I got scared. I started having a panic attack. I couldn't breathe. And it was because I was remembering what they'd done to me. And I think I had blurted out accidentally, "Are you going to tie me up?" And when they heard me say, "Are you going to tie me up?" they all froze, because they realized I had just kind of subconsciously blurted something out that made it clear I remembered what they'd done to me there. And now I was older and could possibly get away with or articulate more. And so I tried to make a run for the phone to call 911 or call cops. And I believe I did get a call out. And then what happened is the cop that showed up was a local cop that was friends with them. And he showed up at the door, said he got a call, and then he came into the house and he threatened me. And and prior to that phone call, I was worried I was going to be harmed. And then and they were talking about getting rid of me, like killing me. And they weren't saying in front of me, "I think it's time that we kill her." But they were saying things in a way that I knew that's what they were talking about. They were talking about me. They were talking about getting rid of me. And then at one point, one of them, George or Janet, I believe it was George, pulled out a gun and had it pointed at me and was saying, they were seriously talking about killing me. And then I think the only thing that stopped them, they didn't know where they were going to put me, and or what they were going to do, how they were going to explain my being shot. However, they had me touch this gun that they were using to hold up against me. So then I called the 911. This cop came over that was one of their friends, and then he basically said that, do you want to live or not? Because he said, as far as I know, your fingerprints are on this gun, and what we can say about you is that you've had a little bit of an instability and some paranoia and an unstable personality disorder. And I would sure hate to have it happen that, you try to lunge for a cop and I have to defend myself, or you accidentally shoot yourself. So basically, he told me that that if I didn't quit trying to report George and Janet Bechtold and what they were doing with me, this cop himself was going to help them fake an accident and have it look like I was to blame, and I was unfortunately killed because of my mental illness, or because I accidentally shot myself after trying to go after them. So basically, he said, so they threatened me. They said they'd frame me. Well, they said they'd kill me. They'd murder me right there. And they'd all get away with it because he was a cop. He could say whatever he wanted. And everybody would believe them because Janet worked for the school and George worked for so-and-so. And my parents were there. They'd get my parents to agree with them. So then I was so shocked, I almost didn't even know what to say, and I don't remember if I started crying or I think I started crying. I actually possibly started crying and started calling out to God out loud. And then he got slightly, for a split second, a little more unnerved. And then he said, come on, just forget about it. He said, I'm going to take you to a nut house. And they're basically just telling me now, shut up and forget about everything that just happened here. Because, you know, we'll let you go if you just keep quiet. And so after that happened at the Bechtolds' house, I didn't see the Bechtolds for decades. For at least at their house like that, I didn't see them until later. The government moved my entire family from Moses Lake, Washington, which was where I lived at the time that when we were over there visiting them. And I don't really remember seeing them. Maybe we did show up once or twice for a couple of things, because they were back and forth between Bechtolds and the Wiltbanks Mormon family, Roger Harris's family, and Erica Wiltbank's family, which were all Mormon. And I wasn't exactly sure what my parents were doing all the time, but there was like constantly back and forth visiting and conversations with grown-ups and that kind of thing. Even when I was older, like there was some kind of business going on. And I also do remember one of the Dixies was having to go into a different room. And then I thought she was getting raped, because there were different men going into the room one after the other and then coming out of there. And I was kind of like, why do they have... and that was on the other side of the house, of their house. Not in George and Janet Bechtolds' room. And I, like Brad Ohl from the DEA, he showed up there. And went into this back room with Dixie, and Brad Ohl was kind of all over the place. He was showing up in Tennessee, Florida, and a number of different places. He also showed up there, and wasn't really sure what they were doing with one of those Dixies, but it didn't look too good. And also one of the Bob Juniors I thought was getting sodomized, because he was having to go into a room too, and then there were men going in after him. I could hear like sometimes hammering, like I thought they were hammering his hands down. And then other times I thought they were just sodomizing him. Like I think I walked in one time, I went around the corner, and I saw one of these guys right up against one of the Bob Juniors, who was looked to me like he was being forced to be bent over with his pants down. And this other guy was coming at him from behind. So, so there were some really weird, possibly extremely illegal things that were happening at that house. And there were a lot of cops involved. State cops, lawyers, and local cops, whatever, you name it. Construction people. So, even Mormons, you know. And so then after a series of like visits where it was some kind of business to attend to at the Bechtolds, I didn't see them until my family then moved from Moses Lake, Washington to Sherwood, Oregon. And by the time they did that, I didn't remember any of these other things that had happened because so much time had passed and I didn't recognize anyone.